When Botswana gained independence from Britain on September 30th, 1966, the country was written off as a hopeless experiment. Botswana was mostly desert and landlocked. It had just 12 kilometers of paved roads, no university, no standing army, and one of the worst economies with the lowest incomes in the world. In fact, it was the second poorest country in the world at that time. Most experts believed it would fail within a decade. Few could have imagined that this forgotten corner of Southern Africa would become one of the continent's most stable democracies and one of its fastest growing economies. At the center of this unlikely transformation stood Seretse Khama. Khama was not a warlord, neither was he a strongman. He was a calm and principled leader who had once been exiled by the British Empire for marrying a white woman, and who returned home determined to prove that good leadership and not natural wealth decides a nation's destiny. We have a dedicated video on our channel about his controversial marriage to a white woman, which led to him being exiled. You can watch that after this one. The link will be in the description. Seretse Khama was president of Botswana for only 14 years, but what he did for Botswana, few leaders have been able to replicate. Till this day, Seretse Khama is still regarded as the best African president of all time, not just because of what he did in Botswana, but because he championed democracy in Africa. In this video, we shall be shining the light on one man whose leadership is a masterclass for other leaders to follow. This is a story of determination, focus, and success. This is the story of Sir Seretse Khama, the man who single-handedly took Botswana from grass to grace. Seretse Khama's path to becoming the first president of Botswana is one of the most remarkable political journeys in modern African history. It was shaped by traditional authority, colonial resistance, personal sacrifice, and an extraordinary commitment to democratic principles at a time when few believed democracy could survive in Africa. His rise was neither sudden nor easy. It was forged through exile, humiliation, and a long political struggle that ultimately transformed a poor British protectorate into a sovereign nation. Seretse Khama was born in 1921 into Botswana's most powerful royal family. He was the heir to the chieftaincy of the Bamangwato people, the largest ethnic group in what was then the Bechuanaland Protectorate. His grandfather, Khama III, was a legendary leader who had resisted colonial domination and secured British protection rather than conquest. From birth, Seretse was groomed for leadership, and his destiny as a future ruler was widely accepted by his people. To prepare him for this role, Seretse Khama was educated abroad. He studied law in South Africa and later in the United Kingdom. It was during his time in Britain that his life took a dramatic turn. In 1948, he married Ruth Williams, a white Englishwoman. At the height of apartheid in neighboring South Africa and entrenched racial attitudes within the British Empire, this interracial marriage caused a political earthquake. Britain feared angering apartheid South Africa and Southern Rhodesia, both of which strongly opposed racial integration. Under immense pressure, the British government took an extraordinary step. In 1951, they exiled Seretse Khama from Bechuanaland, stripping him of his chieftaincy and banning him from returning home. This decision outraged the Bamangwato people, who protested relentlessly in his defense. For years, Khama lived in political limbo, cut off from his homeland, his people, and his traditional authority. Ironically, exile transformed Seretse Khama from a traditional chief into a national political figure. When Britain finally allowed him to return in 1956, it came with conditions. He had to renounce his claim to the chieftaincy. Khama accepted the sacrifice, understanding that Botswana's future lay not in hereditary rule, but in modern democratic leadership. This decision marked a turning point in his life and in Botswana's political history. Freed from traditional constraints, Seretse Khama entered politics as a nationalist leader. In 1962, he founded the Botswana Democratic Party, BDP, advocating for self-rule, democratic governance, national unity, and economic development. Unlike radical nationalist movements elsewhere in Africa, Khama's approach was pragmatic and inclusive. He worked closely with traditional leaders, educated elites, and ordinary citizens, emphasizing consensus over confrontation. At the time, Bechuanaland was one of the poorest territories in the world. It had no real infrastructure, almost no educated workforce, and an economy dependent on subsistence farming and migrant labor. Many doubted independence was even viable. Yet, Khama argued that poverty was not destiny, and that good governance could overcome material scarcity. In 1965, Britain agreed to grant independence. The territory held its first democratic elections, and the Botswana Democratic Party won a decisive victory. Seretse Khama became Prime Minister of Bechuanaland, leading the transition to full sovereignty. Just 1 year later, on September 30th, 1966, the country officially became the Republic of Botswana, and Seretse Khama was sworn in as its first president. His ascent to the presidency was not the result of a coup, military backing, or foreign imposition. It came through elections, negotiation, and public trust. This alone made Botswana an exception in post-colonial Africa. Khama deliberately chose the title of president rather than reclaiming kingship, signaling his commitment to constitutional rule and the separation of traditional authority from state power. As president, Seretse Khama inherited a fragile nation, but his legitimacy was unquestioned. He had endured exile, given up royal privilege, and won power democratically. These experiences shaped his leadership style: cautious, disciplined, and deeply respectful of institutions. His presidency laid the foundations for Botswana's stability, ensuring that power rested in laws rather than individuals. Seretse Khama became president not because history favored him, but because he chose principle over power at every critical moment. That choice would define Botswana's future for generations. To better understand the exact extent to which Khama transformed Botswana, it is important to have an actual overview of the country he inherited. I know we touched on this earlier, but we want to give you full context. By the time Seretse Khama became president of Botswana in 1966, the country he inherited was one of the poorest and least developed and most underestimated territories in the world. Then known as the Bechuanaland Protectorate, Botswana had spent more than 80 years under British rule with almost no meaningful investment. Independence did not come with inherited institutions or economic advantages. It came with overwhelming challenges. Economically, Botswana was extremely poor. At independence, the country had a per capita income estimated at around $70 per year, placing it among the lowest globally. There was no industrial sector to speak of. The economy relied almost entirely on subsistence cattle farming, remittances from migrant workers employed in South African mines, and limited British aid. Recurrent droughts made agriculture unreliable, while widespread poverty left most citizens dependent on traditional livelihoods. Infrastructure was nearly non-existent. Botswana had only about 12 kilometers of paved roads in the entire country. Most transport routes were dirt tracks, often impassable during the rainy season. There were no rail networks connecting major settlements internally, and communication systems were primitive. Electricity was scarce, confined to a few urban centers, and clean water access was limited in rural areas. Social development indicators painted an equally bleak picture. The country had no university, very few secondary schools, and a severe shortage of trained professionals. At independence, Botswana reportedly had fewer than 30 university graduates in the entire nation. Healthcare facilities were minimal, with high infant mortality rates and low life expectancy. Preventable diseases were widespread, especially in rural communities. Politically, Botswana faced uncertainty, but also opportunity. Unlike many African states, it had not experienced violent nationalist struggles. However, it lacked a standing army and relied heavily on colonial administrative structures. Tribal identities were strong, raising concerns about national unity in a newly formed state. Geographically, Botswana's challenges were severe. Nearly 80% of the country is covered by the Kalahari Desert, limiting agricultural potential and making settlement and development difficult. The country was landlocked and surrounded by apartheid-era South Africa and white minority regimes, creating diplomatic and security vulnerabilities. In short, when Seretse Khama took office, Botswana was poor, isolated, underdeveloped, and vulnerable. Yet beneath these hardships lay a crucial advantage: a relatively cohesive society, unburdened by violent conflict, and a leader determined to build institutions before wealth. From this fragile starting point, Botswana's transformation would defy every expectation. The very first step Seretse Khama took toward transforming Botswana was to establish firm, credible governance, anchored in the rule of law. Even before economic growth became a priority, he understood that without a functioning state, no development plan, no matter how ambitious, could succeed. Immediately after independence in 1966, Khama focused on making government authority legitimate, predictable, and respected. He upheld the new constitution strictly and made it clear that power would flow from laws, not personalities. This was a conscious departure from the emerging trend in post-colonial Africa, where many leaders quickly concentrated power around themselves. Khama resisted this, setting a tone that would define Botswana's political culture. Practically, this meant building a professional civil service from day one. Khama retained experienced administrators from the colonial period while rapidly training and promoting Botswana into senior roles. Recruitment was based on competence rather than loyalty or ethnicity. Civil servants were given job security and clear mandates, allowing them to plan long-term policies without fear of political retaliation. Another critical element of this first step was separating leadership from personal enrichment. Khama deliberately lived modestly and insisted on transparency in public finance. Corruption cases, even involving senior officials, were investigated rather than covered up. By setting this standard early, he created a culture where misuse of public resources was socially and politically unacceptable. Khama also worked to unify authority across traditional and modern systems. He respected chiefs and customary institutions, but placed them firmly under the national legal framework. This reduced power struggles and ensured that loyalty to the state took precedence over tribal allegiance. Finally, Khama's early commitment to regular elections and political tolerance signaled continuity and stability. Investors, civil servants, and citizens all understood that Botswana would be governed by rules that would not change overnight. Economy. Seretse Khama transformed Botswana's economy through a clear, step-by-step strategy that focused on securing national control over resources, managing revenue responsibly, and reinvesting wealth into long-term growth rather than short-term consumption. The first economic step Khama took was to secure ownership and control over natural resources. Soon after independence, major diamond deposits were discovered at Orapa. Instead of allowing foreign companies to dominate extraction, Khama personally led negotiations with De Beers. The result was a joint venture model, Botswana, in which the Botswana government held a substantial ownership stake. This ensured that diamond profits flowed directly into the national treasury rather than being exported abroad. The second step was channeling diamond revenue into the state budget under strict rules. All mining income passed through government accounts and was subjected to parliamentary oversight. Khama rejected secret deals and off-budget spending, ensuring transparency and long-term planning. This prevented the emergence of a corrupt elite class that plagued many resource-rich nations. Thirdly, Khama practiced conservative financial management. Instead of spending aggressively, The government saved during boom years and avoided excessive borrowing. Budget surpluses were reinvested carefully, allowing Botswana to withstand droughts and global economic shocks without collapsing. The fourth step was strategic reinvestment of wealth. Diamond income-funded road networks, public buildings, and water projects that supported economic activity. Education spending created a skilled workforce, while healthcare investment improved productivity. These investments gradually diversified the economy beyond cattle farming and migrant labor. Khama encouraged a stable investment environment. By protecting property rights, enforcing contracts, and maintaining political stability, Botswana attracted foreign investors in mining, finance, and services. The state did not chase ideology, it focused on predictability. Finally, Khama ensured that economic policy served national development rather than personal power. His leadership style discouraged corruption and emphasized accountability. In short, Botswana's money came primarily from diamonds, but its success came from how that money was negotiated, controlled, saved, and invested. Step by step, Khama turned mineral wealth into sustained national growth. Infrastructures. Seretse Khama transformed Botswana's infrastructure through a deliberate, phased approach that treated infrastructure not as prestige projects, but as the backbone of national development. His focus was on functionality, connectivity, and long-term impact rather than speed or symbolism. The first step was national planning. Khama ensured that infrastructure development followed clear, government-led development plans rather than ad hoc projects. Roads, water systems, and public buildings were prioritized based on economic and social need. This allowed scarce resources to be directed where they would unlock growth, especially linking productive areas to markets and administrative centers. Next, Khama focused on road connectivity. The government expanded and paved key road corridors connecting major towns, border posts, and rural areas. These roads reduced isolation, lowered transport costs, and allowed goods, services, and people to move efficiently across the country. Road construction was paced to match budget capacity, avoiding debt-driven overexpansion. Water infrastructure was another critical area. Khama invested in dams, boreholes, and water distribution systems to support towns, livestock farming, and industry. In a country prone to drought, reliable water access was essential for economic stability. These projects were engineered for durability, not short-term relief. Public buildings formed the third pillar. Khama oversaw the construction of schools, clinics, hospitals, government offices, and housing. These were spread across the country, not concentrated in the capital alone. This ensured that development was visible and tangible to ordinary citizens, reinforcing trust in the state. Khama also emphasized maintenance and sustainability. Infrastructure budgets included funding for upkeep, preventing rapid decay. Technical expertise was built locally through training programs, reducing reliance on foreign contractors over time. Finally, infrastructure development was protected from corruption. Procurement followed clear rules, and projects were audited. This ensured value for money and consistent quality. By focusing on planning, connectivity, water security, public services, and maintenance, Khama transformed Botswana's infrastructure step by step, creating a foundation that supported economic growth for decades. The results. The results of Seretse Khama's work were profound and long-lasting, fundamentally reshaping Botswana's trajectory and placing it among Africa's most successful post-independent states. His reforms did not produce instant miracles, but over time they delivered stability, growth, and resilience that few had expected from such a modest starting point. Economically, Botswana experienced one of the fastest sustained growth rates in the world from the late 1960s through the 1980s. Diamond revenues managed prudently translated into rising national income, growing foreign reserves, and low public debt. What made this transformation exceptional was not the presence of mineral wealth alone, but the absence of the resource curse. Botswana avoided hyperinflation, capital flight, and elite capture, allowing growth to be broadly shared. Institutionally, Botswana emerged as a stable democracy in a region often marked by coups and authoritarianism. Regular elections, an independent judiciary, and a professional civil service became normalized. Power transfers occurred peacefully, reinforcing public trust in government and creating political continuity after Khama's death. These institutions outlived the man who built them. Socially, Khama's investments produced visible improvements in quality of life. Access to education expanded rapidly, creating a skilled and literate population. Healthcare coverage increased, life expectancy improved, and preventable diseases declined. Infrastructure connected remote communities, reducing regional inequality and strengthening national unity. Internationally, Botswana gained a reputation for good governance, transparency, and reliability. This credibility attracted foreign investment, development partnerships, and diplomatic respect far beyond the country's size. Botswana became a reference point for how African states could govern effectively. Perhaps the most important result was psychological. Khama's leadership replaced fatalism with confidence. Citizens came to believe that institutions mattered, that public resources belonged to the nation, and that progress was achievable through discipline rather than force. By the time of Khama's death in 1980, Botswana had been transformed from a fragile new state into a confident, functional, and forward-looking nation with foundations strong enough to endure. Today, Botswana is one of the most successful countries in Africa, despite its small population of less than 2.5 million people. As of 2025, Botswana's nominal GDP is about $21.9 billion, reflecting its overall economic size. Its GDP per capita is roughly $7,940, meaning the average economic output per person is high compared with many African countries. Botswana has developed a functional and growing infrastructure network that supports both economic activity and social development. Its road system is extensive, with paved highways linking major cities like Gaborone, Francistown, and Maun, as well as border posts, facilitating trade and mobility. The country has modern airports, including Seretse Khama International Airport in Gaborone and Maun Airport, which handle international and domestic flights, particularly for tourism. Utilities such as electricity, water supply, and telecommunications are reliable in urban centers, while rural areas are gradually being connected. Overall, Botswana's infrastructure reflects steady, strategic investment, crucial for sustained development. Botswana is widely regarded as one of Africa's most peaceful and stable countries. It maintains low levels of violent crime, political unrest, and internal conflict, supported by strong democratic institutions, an independent judiciary, and professional security forces. The country has no standing military conflicts and enjoys stable relations with neighbors. Its peaceful environment attracts investment, tourism, and skilled professionals, making it a model of security on the continent. Botswana consistently ranks high on the Global Peace Index for Africa. Botswana's passport is considered one of the stronger African passports, offering its citizens visa-free or visa-on-arrival access to over 70 countries worldwide. This includes access to much of Africa, parts of Asia, and select European and Caribbean nations. While not as globally powerful as passports from Europe or North America, it provides significant travel freedom for business, tourism, and education. The passport's strength reflects Botswana's stable governance, peaceful international relations, and reputation as a trustworthy and secure nation. To conclude, Seretse Khama's leadership transformed Botswana from a fragile, impoverished state into a stable, prosperous, and democratic nation. Through vision, discipline, and pragmatic governance, he built strong institutions, managed resources responsibly, and prioritized education, infrastructure, and healthcare. His commitment to transparency, peace, and long-term development set a standard rarely seen in Africa. For his ability to combine moral integrity with practical statecraft, Khama remains arguably Africa's most transformative president, a model of leadership that turned possibility into enduring national success.